Hello and welcome to our special show on World Sleep Day. I'm Gargi Rawat. What do you do to stay healthy? Eat the right kind of food, exercise regularly. What if we told you that to stay healthy, it's just as important to sleep? Sleep of the right length in the correct way and of good quality. Sleep is your body's way of recharging its batteries. Sadly, our lifestyles today are often getting in the way of proper sleep, and many people don't get enough sleep at night. We've turned into night owls who often fight sleep because of the prevalence of mobile phones and other addictive screens in our lives. But irregular, inadequate sleep is as bad for our body as junk food. The impact on our health is far-ranging. Mental health problems like depression and anxiety, physical like diabetes, cardiac disease, obesity, high blood pressure, a weakened immune system, and impairments like memory issues, mood changes, and trouble with concentration. The list is endless. Now, it's essential to understand that sleep is vital and to be aware that you can give yourself the best chance of a good night's sleep. What better day than World Sleep Day to discuss how sleep is your superpower? Welcome to this special show. NDTV and Duroflex coming together to advocate and raise awareness for better sleep quality and health. On our panel today, we have Matthew Chandy, Managing Director, Duroflex, Dr. Mahavir Bhatia, Senior Neurologist and Sleep Specialist, Dr. Ashok Seth, Chairman Fortis Escorts Heart Institute, Head of Cardiology, Council of Fortis Group of Hospitals, and joining us is Ira Trivedi, Yoga Acharya. Thank you all for joining us on the program. I'd like to start with you, Matthew Chandy. The last 2 years have forced people, for one reason or the other, to think of their health much more. And as part of that, do you think people are taking sleep more seriously now as a health benefit?
Hi, Gargi, and thanks for partnering with us to spread the good word about sleep. No better day than today, which is World Sleep Day. Certainly over the last 2 years, we've seen the people taking their sleep much more seriously. The pandemic has forced us to think about comorbidities and the poor lifestyle choices we make, which lead to some of these comorbidities. So really, people have started thinking about the importance of sleep for their immunity, the importance of sleep for vaccine efficacy, and are really doing much more to focus on better health, better sleep. And of course, some of the serious incidents we saw recently with Gautam Reddy and Puneet Rajkumar really shocked us into thinking about the importance of health and sleep and how important it is. So yeah, I think the pandemic has really boosted the conversation around the superpowers of sleep.
Right, and how health is wealth. And yes, comorbidities, I think, is one of those words that become so common in these last 2 years. Dr. Seth, so tell us more about the link between lack of sleep and our heart health.
You know, I think sleep is not a luxury. Sleep is a necessity. We must remember that. And for a long time, we've been emphasizing the risk factors for heart disease. And everybody knows that that's related to smoking, diabetes, obesity, hypertension, stress, etc. But can you believe it that we've actually excluded and not emphasized enough on the most important risk factor, and which is sleep? For example, if you just have to understand the fact that the heart is a muscle pump and continues to beat every second, multiple minutes, multiple hours throughout our life, and we just need to give it rest. After all, it's there. And do you realize that actually at night, when the heart rate goes down, when the blood pressure goes down, heart is getting a rest. It's getting rejuvenated for the next day. So that is the clear mechanism, and it's not just a hypothesis. It's actually a proven mechanism which prevents heart disease. And therefore, more recently, we've been emphasizing the fact that all this issue about, I'm all motivated, I'm actually an achiever, the less I sleep, the more time I have to achieve, is actually a real myth. Those who sleep less than 7 hours have a greater chances of heart attack and a greater chances of dying. And let me explain why. It has clearly been shown that inadequate sleep, there are 3 aspects of sleep that we as cardiologists emphasize and are very concerned about. One is the fact that lack of sleep causes increase in weight, is known to cause increase in blood pressure, is also known to cause diabetes, can cause inflammation of the arteries, and can precipitate heart attacks, even in normal individuals. In those who already have heart disease, lack of sleep itself can cause heart attacks, can cause heart failure. That's also recognized.
Right.
And thirdly, the quality of sleep correlates with high blood pressures at night. And if the blood pressure goes up at night, it is one of the clear predictors of bad outcomes in people. So high blood pressure during the day is not so bad. And that's the one which we are treating commonly. High blood pressure at night, when you're supposed to have low blood pressure, is a much bigger predictor of having heart disease and death from heart disease. And that's what happens in lack of sleep. And finally, there are sleep disorders like obstructive sleep apneas, which clearly relate to arrhythmias, which clearly relate to heart failure, which clearly relate to heart attacks and death. So we are actually in a conundrum saying and emphasizing now these days that sleep is most important, equally important as smoking, as obesity, as diabetes, as hypertension to prevent heart disease as well as heart attacks.
Now, Dr. Bhatia, to begin with, many people think of sleep as an optional activity. There is a statistic that says India is the second most sleep-deprived country in the world. Can you tell our viewers how lack of proper sleep directly impacts our health?
So the lack of sleep can affect all aspects of health. You know, we now know that lack of sleep can affect the physical health. That means it can make you more prone to get a heart attack, brain strokes, diabetes, blood pressure. It can also affect your emotional health, and that means your mood, happiness, joy, sadness. It can also affect depression. It can also cause, lack of sleep can cause depression, anxiety, and also affect your productivity, creativity, learning, memory, decision-making, multitasking. So let's say that sleep is like a base, a foundation, a pillar on which other pillars of health stand. And if we deprive ourselves of sleep, all these functions can get affected.
All right. So the importance of sleep then, it's, given that how much we praise leaders who have very little sleep and we're told, oh, they just sleep 4 hours and, they wake up and they're working. So it's interesting to know so much about the importance of sleep for our health. But Ira Trivedi, let's get you in here. In the practice of yoga, what significance does sleep have?
A lot of significance actually. And in yoga, we do have techniques, for example, Yoga Nidra, which is yogic sleep. And it allows you to go into a state of deep conscious rest, which will then allow you to relax either before sleeping or give your brain the same signals as sleep. So 20 minutes of Yoga Nidra done at any point in the day is usually equal to around 3 hours of deep sleep. This also goes back to napping. I kind of call Yoga Nidra as a sophisticated form of napping, because sometimes if you nap, you go into a sleep state, then when you wake up, you're very lethargic. So Yoga Nidra keeps you at that really correct place of deep rest. And we sometimes need this in the middle of the day. Often when people wake up early, they work very hard in the day, they have a lot of stress. So just that 20 minutes of Yoga Nidra can really help support us. So sleep is fundamental to the practice of yoga. In fact, I do believe it is one of the yogic superpowers. I always say there's 5 yogic superpowers, and one of these superpowers is sleep and entering into that date state of rest and restoration. Definitely yoga propagates sound sleep. Also, the quality of the sleep is very important, maintaining circadian rhythms. So, sleeping at a proper time and waking up at a proper time. So a common thing that we say is that any sleep which is before midnight is actually equivalent to 2 hours of sleep. So if you go to sleep at 10 p.m., then 10 to 12, 2 hours is worth 4 hours because the quality of sleep is better. The biggest interferer to sleep is actually late night television that people are watching.
Right.
And when they go to sleep with those impressions in their mind. And that causes not very relaxed sleep. So I think what's also very important to think about is the frame of mind that we go to sleep with. So it's always important to go to sleep with a positive frame of mind. And that's why before sleeping, a little bit of meditation, a little bit of breathing practices can actually make those same hours of sleep more productive. So you're packing more into the punch.
All right, that's absolutely fascinating. And talking about the quality of sleep, Matthew Chaney, tell us about sleep hygiene. What are some of the signs of poor sleep hygiene, and what are the sleeping aids that can help us improve that?
Yeah, I think our panelists have said it so well. Sleep is so important. Some of the telltale signs of poor sleep, I think I'm certainly guilty of many of them. A lot of people think they get great sleep because they fall asleep as soon as they sit in a car. Some people think they get great sleep because they fall asleep as soon as they start watching TV, or if a meeting goes on for too long. But I think these are actually all signs that your body is tired, your body is probably sleep deprived, and an indication that you're not getting enough quality, quantity and consistency of sleep. So I think there are certainly a number of really useful, simple aids that people can use to get much better sleep. One is really paying attention to the hygiene in the bedroom. So it's well known that a darker room helps you to sleep longer and deeper. A cooler room helps you to sleep longer and deeper. A quieter room, so with as little noise or disturbance as possible. And like Ira said, I think going to sleep after following a good wind-down routine, a little bit of meditation, a little bit of quiet time, getting off your gadgets at least a couple of hours before falling asleep. And obviously, sleeping on a good bed, a good mattress, a mattress which has able to provide you the right level of support and comfort to keep you in deep sleep as long as possible.
Right.
And we spend a disproportionate amount of time and money researching all of these aspects because it's so crucial to provide your body the right level of support and comfort to keep you sleeping once you're falling asleep.
Well, we'll slip into a short break right now and return with more, and we'll speak to our guests more about the importance of sleep and its connection to our health. Welcome back to our special show on World Sleep Day, and we're now going to talk about a very important aspect of sleep. And Dr. Seth, this question is for you. There are different schools of thought about the ideal number of sleeping hours or the minimum number of sleeping hours needed for proper functioning. So tell us, what is the right amount of sleep that's required for a healthy lifestyle?
I'd start off by saying that in the present competitive world, it's sometimes a bit of a I also relate this to my own self during, when I was in the early part of my career, I would actually believe that if I slept anything more than 5 hours, I was being unfair to what I had to achieve. And when I got to 6 hours, I would say, my God, I'm moving towards disastrous life. This is what I want to avoid, and put this message on to everyone who's now in at a young age and in competitive world, who believes that it's actually in some form of a superiority to say that I only sleep for 5 hours because I just work so hard, or I sleep only for 6 hours. I think that's one has to move away from that to say, I'm proud that I actually sleep for more than 7 hours. Now, the average sleep time has to be no less than 7 hours. And the quality of sleep becomes equally important, because in that 7 hours has to be a good quality sleep. So we would define it saying at least 7 hours of good quality sleep. Now, there's been data to show, by the way, that if you actually sleep very long, that's also not good. It's been associated with heart attacks. It's been associated with it's been correlated, and I won't say causative phenomenon, but it's been associated with heart attacks. And perhaps it's because anybody who sleeps for 9-10 hours at a stretch is perhaps doing it because he's got other comorbidities. There may be too much of stress, tiredness. There could be actually pathological situations in which one could actually sleep longer. And of course, it leads to less activity, being overweight, and so on and so forth. So the balance is somewhere between 7 to 8 hours. So it could differ from individuals. And we're talking about, by the way, I've got to emphasize this, we're talking about young people. We're not talking about that. We're talking about people who are 60, 70 should be sleeping more than 7 hours and should not be less than 7 hours. We're talking about even in your most productive ages of 18 to 60, your sleep should be regulated to at least 7 hours of good sleep. And by the way, we actually do want to emphasize that is the quality of sleep which matters. You know, remember I said lack of sleep causes increase in weight, lack of sleep causes less productivity, lack of sleep means that you're not giving rest to your body and the heart which it actually needs, that you're pushing it. It actually therefore translates into bad control of diabetes, bad control of hypertension, the very risk factors which we worried about all the time, which lead to heart disease. So that is true, that and the quality of sleep relates to blood pressure. I mean, we are actually in a conundrum of a situation where, and this time, the last 15 years, our emphasis on two, which had been least in the past, which was stress. Remember, 10 years ago, we talked less about stress. There was less stress 20 years ago in everybody's mind. Do you know that people sleep less by 1.5 hours now than they used to around 20 and 25 years ago? That's universal figures. We're sleeping less. And that's the reason why we're actually having much more heart disease, much more deaths from heart disease, and certainly need to be really, really cautious around all these issues.
And much more stress since you can't, recharge your batteries. Matthew Chandy, you ran a campaign called Sounds of Sleep. So tell us about that and what was the kind of response you got?
It was one of the most fun things we did last year. We realized that lullabies were a dying tradition in India, that all of us grew up with really beautiful lullabies sung by our parents or aunts and uncles. And that tradition was sort of dying out. So we ran a campaign called Sounds of Sleep, where we resurrected beautiful regional lullabies from 6 different states in India. We glamorized them. We got young, dynamic playback singers to sing them. And we found it was a really nice way to reach out to young new parents who maybe didn't know these lullabies or who wanted to find them, and give them an opportunity to use them to play them back for their young children. Actually, also, it was a subtle way for us to emphasize the importance of a wind down routine before you go to sleep. A lullaby is a nice way to slip into sleep or to slip into something like Yog Nidra. And also emphasize the importance of the bonds that get formed between a mother and her child just before sleep, or between an individual and his or herself just before they fall asleep. So that wind down routine, cleaning your mind, calming down, and quietly slipping into sleep was a very important thing. So as a campaign, it was wildly successful. It was watched and downloaded by 24 million people last year.
Right.
And this World Sleep Day, we are going to double down on this. In fact, we've commissioned some very talented artists to write 4 new lullabies. So it's also our commitment to keep this beautiful tradition of lullabies going.
All right.
Lovely fun thing we did last year and will continue to do.
All right. Ira Trivedi, there's a view in yoga on the right position to sleep. Tell us a bit more about that.
So the best position to sleep is flat on your back, okay, with your spine completely flat. And definitely a good mattress is important. I see a lot of problems caused by students, and these problems are actually because of bad mattresses. And they're using mattresses that are too soft or too hard. So I do always tell people that invest in a good mattress and a good pillow, because these actually help prevent a whole bunch of problems moving forward. So that's one. If you can't sleep on your back, sleeping on your left or on your right side, usually with a pillow in between your knees. So some support, that'll help support your lumbar spine. So sort of organizing yourself with a pillow in between the knees, maybe a pillow, a thinnish flat pillow underneath your head, and maybe even a third pillow near your heels and ankles. That can help create a good posture. The worst is to sleep on your stomach. That is the worst kind of posture, with your head on one side. So you'll often see people who are on their stomachs and their heads are like this on one side. This can actually cause a lot of cervical problems. So that is the worst way to sleep. So if you are sleeping on your stomach, then try to at least sleep on your side. But when it comes to digestion, when it comes to spinal health, for all of it, it's much better to sleep flat on your back or on the two sides. It takes a little bit of training, but I promise you that just sleeping in the right position, on the right mattress, and with the right pillow, these three things can actually get rid of so many spinal issues. Right. And these are chronic issues, because remember, you're spending 8 hours of your day, hopefully 7 to 8 hours on this bed. So definitely investing in a good mattress is really, really important. A small change like this can go a long way.
I think everybody's agreed that devices is a big impediment to a good healthy sleep, and I think parents also need to be aware about this, about how it affects the quality of sleep, because too many kids these days are also falling asleep with their devices in their hands. So if you could tell us about how this affects our sleep and what can be done.
How do the devices affect the sleep?
Yes,
in a couple of ways, actually. First and foremost is the light. The devices emit a light, and a simple thing is that to fall asleep, we need darkness. Why? Because when there is darkness, the sleep-inducing hormone, that is the melatonin, has to come up, rise to a peak, and then gradually come down. And if we continue to keep any form of these lights on, then we interfere with the release of melatonin. And that does what? That will interfere with the quality of sleep, duration of sleep, and also with the other mood elevating hormones, such as the serotonin, noradrenaline. So thus it leads to also a bad mood. So in other words, this light is not only interfering with the sleep, it's also going to affect our mood. An often heard statement by parents and the children and youngsters is that, I'm on the screen because I'm not able to fall asleep. So if I could sleep, I'd put the screens off. But it's the other way around. The longer you keep the light on, you will not let the sleep come, let's say. You're just stopping it. Second thing, these lights or any gadgets that we are using at night, we are engaging. So if you engage, you are inherently releasing the wake promoting chemicals. Okay. And you will not allow the sleep to come. If you're watching something alarming or anything that you are interacting or reading, that's going to interfere. Third is, of course, that Ira mentioned, that if you keep your brain very alert and engaged right till the time that you put the lights off, the sleep quality is really bad. People wake up at 2 and 3, they have bad dreams, they have nightmares. Then they come and tell us that, I switched the light off, I switched the computer, but I can't fall asleep. Then they will take a pill. So it's a vicious cycle. So there has to be a time where we end the day.
Thank you so much all for joining us today on our special show, and thank you all for watching at home. Goodbye.